Welcome to Redefining Normal. Join us as we question conventional thinking and talk about the courage it takes to create and live a deliciously vibrant life.
This podcast is for people who know there's a better way to do life and love, how we show up in connection to others, our kids, our partners, our business, and beyond that, our relationship with money, vitality, and more than anything, ourselves.
We're two shamelessly unapologetic moms choosing to experience the fullness of life.
And we're collapsing the conditioning that says you can't live a life of pleasure, peace, and abundance in the midst of the mundane of life responsibilities, work, and kids.
Thank you for listening in. Let's do this. Today, Jamie and I are coming together to talk about how to navigate conflict and big emotions with our kids. So we're going to have a little bit of a parenting conversation, which we haven't done yet. So I'm super excited by this. It is Jamie's forte. She's amazing. And we both have really amazingly different and wonderful ways that we navigate our parenting and how we've come from and where we are currently. We've both definitely evolved in our parenting cycles. So, Jamie, do you want to start with where do we think, like, as we think about normal in the world today in parenting, when we're looking at emotional capacity and we're looking at helping our children to be in their emotions and navigate conflict, where do you see us as a society in normal at the moment?
Well, I mean, it's a, broad generalization, but I would say that there's a lot of kind of dropping into our own trigger around whatever's happening and actually meeting our kids where they're at versus holding a position of stability, of wisdom, of holding. For me personally, it feels a lot like there's just a lot of trigger around it. I think parents in general are really uncomfortable with witnessing and holding presence and being in conflict or the expression of big emotions by our kids. It brings up guilt. It brings up our own inner child stuff, the way our parents did it, what we think should be happening. It brings up a lot, I think, when our children express big emotions or when we're in conflict with our kids. You'd said earlier when we were just talking about one of your kiddos having big emotions, and that part of the reason there was oftentimes big clash is because you were also operating. It's like you were operating at that same energy. My thing tends to be, it activates a lot of parenting, shame, self-judgment, what did I do wrong that my kid is this upset about something? Or, if there's conflict that they're being disrespectful, it brings up all my conditioning, the way I perceive, the way I think it should look. And then this doesn't look like the thing that I had in my head. And in that moment, it becomes really hard to stabilize, to bring awareness to what's happening, and then to connect to the North Star of what it is that I want to create in this relationship in this moment. Because as parents, we're guiding our kids on how to navigate hard feelings, how to navigate big emotions, how to navigate conflict in a healthy and growth-oriented way. And if we can't model that and guide them in that, we're missing a huge opportunity.
I love that. Thank you. I was just taking a little note there. Yeah, really well said. I wanted to add into I was just taking a few little things as you were talking about some things that came up as you were speaking. And one of them is you were talking about how parents struggle in conflict. And I wanted to kind of extend this out. It's not parenting. I think most humans
struggle very uncomfortable
and struggle to be in emotions. Right. And I know for me, as a woman with big emotions, I have been told I'm too much for many people. Right. So it's also in the context of relationship too, that the capacity of the other human to hold emotion. Yeah. And there are definitely humans in this world who struggle with that. Right. Yeah. And, one of the greatest gifts that I've been receiving with this other partner has been to be able to be seen in it and be able to be held in it. And so I know that there is a capacity right? And so this is kind of the thing that I think as we talk about what was and what we are moving into is this capacity to be like, I'm the same person, but oh, for somebody else, this was easy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's capacity, but it wasn't because it was always easy. And I'm going to say for both of us, like our capacity to hold our children, right? You've talked about this in your, blogs and all the, you talk about it often is how like you wish in some way that you could be the parent that like knew all of this to start with.
Right.
But neither of us did. I yelled at my kids. I was
Oh my
totally
gosh, I was
dysregulated.
such a yeller. Yeah.
I was totally
And
dysregulated.
so reactive.
Reactive. And this
Yeah.
is what you were saying. Like Sam was this huge mirror for me, and I didn't have the capacity to hold myself
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
So there was no way I could hold him. And I want to say this because this is what's normal in a lot of houses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we want to project all of our shit onto our kids
Mm-hmm.
and we struggle to hold them, but that's ultimately because we haven't learned how to hold ourselves. And so then we shame their emotions. Stop that. I can't cope with you. Stop tantruming. And the other thing that was coming to me too, the other word was it's inconvenient, right? For a lot of people, it's very inconvenient that our kids have tantrums.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is it's inconvenient as a human, as an adult when we have tantrums, right?
Right.
And sometimes we have to like say, hey, tantrum, you're going to have to wait a minute and I can deal with you at the end of the day, right? But we're adults who can manage that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can't. Sometimes we just freaking tantrum and the person who's near us gets the thing, right? Until we know. So I'm saying like, I didn't know and I did that.
Yeah.
But when we learn, we can learn that like, okay, I can feel this, I can recognize this, and I can go and recognize that in 4 hours from now, when I am at home in my space, I can deal with what I have in my body and my emotional capacity, right? Yeah. But kids don't have that. And most adults don't have that until we learn that. And so I think it really kind of comes into where the normal is now. And I also would say this comes into if I look at like a really in your face perspective of like if we come back down to earth, like human connection, it might look like there's people in this world who gaslight, who will literally say your emotions stop. I know it, like you have to stop crying. It's not okay.
Right? Like
right?
you don't know what you're feeling, or this is
right?
inappropriate behavior,
right?
or whatever.
You don't know what you're feeling, right? And this comes out and it's really heartbreaking to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When a child's like, I'm feeling, and they're like, no, you're not. You don't know what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or another human. We say this other humans. So let's, again. What other ways does it come out like that when we're in connection and communication? It'll be a shutdown, like the person might shut down, right? And like a lot of people might retreat and just not actually be able to handle it. And so then they disappear. So they disappear in partnership, but they also
abandonment.
Right.
It's like I can't with you right now. And then,
or sending them to the naughty corner.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I can't cope with you. So I'm going to send you out somewhere else because I can't deal. So I'd say these are some of the behaviors that people might see in your household or in other households that, for a long time is really normal.
Still probably is in a lot of ways.
Right. And
I mean, that's the whole purpose that we have these conversations, though, isn't to shame the way it is, but it's like to highlight
to bring awareness.
What's going on. Yeah. And offer alternative perspectives and why they might be valid. Because the thing is that when we look at individuation and everybody doing things in the way that works for them, this is going to look different for everybody. But ultimately, it comes down to our capacity and our willingness to feel what we're feeling and to, explore what it's bringing up for us and be responsible for ourselves. And we're literally redefining these things. It's like we're breaking generational cycles and patterns by redefining. I mean, like yesterday, Rumi and I, we had some conflict. Her and I are so similar that we butt heads a lot. And, I don't even remember the specifics necessarily, but in the conversation, there was some hesitation to be in conflict. And I asked her if she was willing to redefine that with me, that conflict is our opportunity to correct and adjust the way that we are communicating with each other. Conflict is showing us a place where we are not on the same wavelength. And so instead of avoiding it, instead of like just trying to avoid recognizing those things, if we actually started to welcome them as awareness of like, we don't see eye to eye on this thing. How can we communicate better so that we're understanding each other better? And really starting to frame conflict as an opportunity to learn more and collect data and experience something new with each other. Because I told her that one of my biggest fears is that if we don't learn how to navigate conflict in a healthy way, because I'm the position of power as the parent, and then she learns to just people please me. If she just learns to just accommodate the way I think it should be, that inevitably that starts to build resentment, whether or not she's consciously aware of it, to the point where we don't actually have a close relationship because there's so much built up resentment. So I actually asked her if she was willing to participate in the conflict with me so that we could continually grow together instead of like continually creating more and more distance without even conscious awareness on either of our parts. Because my biggest desire is to always that my kids always know that I love them and that I'm there for them and that we are a team, right? Like there's nothing that they could do that would alienate me. And like we talked about earlier, a lot of this is correction from when they were younger, and I would dismiss, or I would get frustrated, or I would be reactive in conflict. And so I'm having to correct a lot of that. And I'm having to intentionally invite my kids back into redefining what that looks like now. And luckily, Rumi is mature enough and present enough to say, of course, that's what I want too. And I don't want to grow to that point. And so, yes, I'm here for it and I'm a part of it. And we're learning how to be in conflict in a healthy way. And I think that, like you've said, this is important in any relationship. I think that there's a lot of weight in it as a parent because we are breaking cycles and we're literally teaching the next generation how all of this works. So the more that we as parents can model things that we want to see more of, we're feeding that into the future collective. But it's important in any relating dynamic, I think.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. That was beautiful. I'm so glad that you are having that conversation with her.
Yeah. It's big. It's really big to recognize. And we stayed at the table. Like it was easy for both of us to be like, oh, I'm so frustrated. Let's just, go our separate ways, which comes from you're having big emotions right now. Go sit in timeout until you can communicate. That is a lot to ask of a brand new nervous system who is feeling big things and does not have the tools to regulate, like to send them off to be by themselves versus staying with them in the big emotion. Yep. And oftentimes parents can't do that because it feels big in our system. And then when you bring human
design, we have our own emotions too.
Exactly. In human design too, Rumi has a defined emotional center and mine is open. So when she feels big things, I take it into my body and amplify it, so then also with that awareness, I'm like, this is not my emotion. But what I used to do is feel it and then act like it was mine and make a story about how it was mine. And now it's like, I'm just letting it move through and building my capacity to let that much energy move through me. Because it's intense to witness a powerful generator in like intense frustration. Like that is probably one of the worst feelings in my body, to feel. And Kelly Greenough, who it does the human design part of Parenting Paradox, she was talking about how generators make up a majority of the population right now. And a majority of them are frustrated. So generator auras are enveloping, right? So we literally like wrap people in our energy. And when you think about a majority of the population as generators, and then in that frustrated generators enveloping the people around them with frustration like that, it's like it helps me to understand so much the state of the world. Whereas if we started to teach every design type what their strategy is and what their emotional, profile is, and what the world would be like if more generators were satisfied and enveloping the people around them with satisfaction, like yum, which, it's like it perpetuates success in the projectors and peace in the manifestors. Yeah. And what is reflectors? I can't remember what reflectors emotional.
I would think peace, but that's me. That's manifesting.
Yeah, no, that's you. I can't remember. Anyway. Yeah. So also, I guess, it's like learning specifically how you work, how your child or children
Yes.
and understanding
Oh my God,
the
yes.
mechanics of it is
Oh my God, yes, it's
a
so
massive,
big.
that's a massive gift, right?
Parenting with human design is so big. Okay, wait, before we go there, because I definitely think we should go there actually.
Yes. Yes.
And I think you should tell them a little bit about parenting paradox as well.
I will.
But I wanted to say, if we hook back right before we take off to that conversation, I want to really bring a point in that Jamie and I are sitting here saying, like, we were doing a lot of the quote unquote normal when we started parenting. Yeah. And through the years, we have figured out like this stuff for ourselves and how to help our kids. Yeah. And I want to say this because I think it's really important to have the awareness that a lot of people think, oh, I fucked it up, or I fucked my kids up, or I can't repair this, or they're too far gone, or our relationship's too far gone, or like even for me in the capacity of having a mom and I who are estranged, right? My mom, and I've asked for repair, but she couldn't come to the table for it. And so if she did ever come to me one day and say, Carrie, I'm ready, let's have this conversation, I'm all in for it. Yeah. Right. I'm all fucking in for it. Yeah. And I'm saying that as a 46-year-old woman, right? Like there's never too late to repair. There's never too late to change the situation. There's never too late to realize that generational conditioning, like, is what you've been playing out, and there's new choices. Yeah. And there's no shame in it. There's no judgment in it. There's no nothing, because it's all what we've been taught. Yeah. Right? And until you have the awareness that you're like, oh my God, this actually isn't healthy, and there's other ways to do this that create a far more harmonious home, right? Like when Hugh moved out, it was so beautiful because I got to have this experience of it was so beautiful because I got to have this experience of parenting my kids the way I wanted to parent them, without another influence that was not the influence that I wanted to have anymore. Like I had grown through that. Right. And my kids and I have the most amazing, loving relationship now, and we don't fight, and we work together. And and I say this because I was really fucking explosive, and Sam was really fucking explosive, and like it was hardcore sometimes, and like his tantrums would be sometimes 45 minutes of smashing into me and like hurting me. Right. I
used to stand on the inside of my bedroom door and really like pound and scream.
Right. That's it. Me too.
And I would just sit on the inside just crying because I'm like, what the fuck do I do with this?
Right. And then you can't let them out in the house. Right? You can't let them out in the house because you're like, oh my God, they're going to destroy my house. I couldn't let them run because he's going to hurt Robbie. So I would just sit in the room and you take it. Right. Yeah. Like it was intense. Both of us can say it. Yeah. But through these process, and Sam still has, right? Rumi still has really big emotions. And
so do I sometimes. This is
right.
Fuck. Like if we're being honest, it's
right. And it's so beautiful to say, like, we're all still the same people, but we're learning how to navigate it very differently. Yeah. And even things like when you say I have big emotions, like, this last few weeks has been really challenging for me. I've had some really fucking big emotions and it's really consumed me. And one of the ways that I've handled it with my kids is to say, hey guys, like to be honest, like, I have been dead honest with them. And a lot of people want to hide it. And a lot of people want to hide, right? My heart was broken. So what am I going to do? Try and hide heartbreak from my kids? No, I'm just going to tell them, hey, I've had a heartbreak and this is what's going on. And the first week of it, I was so freaking distant. And I was like, it was a beautiful conversation between us. I'm like, you guys, what do you need? Because I'll give you what you need. But also like, I'm really sorry that I'm so unpresent. And I really owned what was going on. But through that process, they learn that, hey, it's okay to have some big emotions. Yeah. Right. Because we model this for them by having them and saying, I have these big emotions, but it's not your problem. Right. I'm going to hold myself, but also I'm not really the most present mom this week for you. And I'm sorry.
Yeah. And that's the balance, is being able to be honest and not make it their responsibility. Oftentimes kids with very emotional parents, mothers in particular, start to learn that it's their job to take care of their mother's emotions because it's unsafe. Like if mom is upset, then things get chaotic. So I'm going to behave in a way that doesn't trigger that. And so there is such a nuanced dance of being honest and reminding your kids that their development, their health, their process is important and that they are not responsible for you, and watching all of the subtle ways that you may be creating, that perception in our kids while still being really authentic and honest and human. Like this is the thing, I think so often parents are expected to not be human.
Right.
It's like once you get once you have kids, like you don't get to all of these things anymore. And it's like, no, you're still the same exact person. Yes, there's another being now that's impacted by it. And there are ways to navigate that. And every alchemical relationship of parent-child is going to be different based on the two individuals at play. My relationship with one daughter is very different from the other.
Me too.
And yeah, it's the capacity to even just recognize what's moving in us so that we don't project that onto our kids. And I think that something that us moms who have done it in the normal way and created some toxic patterns in our family dynamics is this awareness that one of the consequences may be that our children don't want to repair that right now.
Right.
And holding and being with the part of us that's so scared of that, because it actually, I think, mirrors our own abandonment fears from our parents. And now our kids are abandoning us. And you see this a lot in our generation. I think there are a lot of people our age who do not talk to their mothers in particular, or parents. And a lot of that has to do with that generation not being able to apologize, to take responsibility for their part in the dynamic, for really perpetuating you're the child, I'm the parent, this is how things work. And it's our generation that is kind of mantling that in a lot of ways and showing up with our kids in a way that's like, I want to be a part of the solution, and I hear you and I see you and I want to understand you and I want to take responsibility for my part in it.
Right. It makes me so excited to see this generation grow because there's so many of us who are changing the way that we do this with them. So they're gonna grow up with so much less baggage. I mean, there's still gonna be baggage, of course, but it's different, and they have a lot more awareness. And I think it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
It's I don't know if I would say this. I will say this.
Say it.
Because I've been on some dates lately with some younger men or over the years, right? Yeah. Over the years and recently, who are early 30, 27, 28, early 30. And there's a part of me who really loves, by the way, for those listening, playing age. Like it's never been past a date. I will say that at this point in time, but it's been really fascinating for me to meet. Right. Because some of these, what I find, it's like almost like this check-in. I'm like, one day something might happen. I'm not adverse to it. Right. Because I'm kind of playing like, where is the spectrum? What difference does it make? Age. Somebody can show up in the maturity level. And this is what's been so fascinating to me, because that generation, there's a maturity that is there innately at that age. And I find it really freaking
right? Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, it really is beautiful in my heart to see the way these men show up at age. And I'm like, good, things are changing. Like, it is beautiful to see you in this way. And it really, I don't, maybe this is part of the, for my thing right now, is just like the enjoyment of getting to see people that age and see really how they're showing up right now and see how the generations are moving through. That I'm enjoying chatting with younger people and older people, right? Like just hearing different things.
Yeah.
So I just want to say that I think it's really interesting to see as we, go down the generation, that this stuff is showing up with more ease. They're not having to go through the freaking shit show that some of us have been through at our age to change it, because some of them are getting raised in this way, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so can we now hop into, I think, does that part feel complete? Because I know that we're gonna have to wrap up soon. So can we hop into a little piece on, tell us a little bit about parenting paradox that you're
Yeah.
doing, and then let's have like a few minute chat. I know it's gonna be so hard for us to say to a few minutes, but I'm just aware of our time
Yeah.
and that we want to keep these to time around human design. Let's
Yeah.
start that. But maybe we need to have like a whole show on human design and parenting.
Yeah.
That might,
Yeah.
okay,
I mean, because that is a massive
it's a
conversation.
massive conversation, but I think we should have a little taster today.
Yeah. Well, so similar to your wealth calibration, I saw that you were talking about how I've been preparing. I've been preparing for this conversation for years, right? And so excited to finally be in it and holding it and offering it. Parenting Paradox is very much the same way, is a body of work that's been growing and evolving. Over, gosh, I mean, really the last almost 2 decades, because I do have a 19-year-old. But, seriously in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And every time it stretches me because it shows me where I am being called into deeper integrity with my own parenting relationships. And I recently invited Kelly Greenough, who is a brilliant human design expert. She's a projector. So the way that she sees deeply into a system is phenomenal. And I finally gave her a solid invitation that she felt a yes to. And so her and I are meeting on a regular basis to really help parents understand the human design aspect of parent-child relationship. And we're combining that with the 4 pillars of parenting paradox and the 4 structures that help you and me and anybody that wants to shift from like the old kind of like conflict and it's almost like at odds kind of dynamic between parents and kids, teenagers in particular, to a co-creative, mutually respectful dynamic in the house. And it's just been so amazing to start to recognize, because, when you look at human design, it becomes the mechanics of the relationship, and it makes it easier to not feel like it's so personal. When you start
Totally.
to recognize the mechanics, right? It's like, oh, this is a projector trying to engage with a generator, and I'm frustrated because she's not responding to me, but she doesn't know how to respond. That's not how she is, So
True.
what used to be like, she doesn't like me and she's being disrespectful in this like personal story is mechanical now. And it's like, oh, how do I speak to a projector? How do I invite her into this conversation? How do I let her know that my natural tendency is a response? So that whole aspect, adding Kelly Greenough's, her unique kind of transmission, like I've been studying human design for ages, and there are things that I know and I've learned, and then she says it and I'm like, holy fuck, that makes so much sense now on a different level of my being that I can actually apply functionally to my relationships. So parenting paradox was growing, but I feel like what's really clicked it into place was adding this very like mechanical, technical human design to it. Has been epic.
I'm excited. You guys, so basically what we're saying is, if you want some support in your parenting, talk to Jamie, send her a message.
Yes. And I mean, like this whole, like we're actually creating like a self-guided process, or if you want more hands-on and like Kelly's eyes on everybody's charts and stuff like that. Like we're creating lots of different ways for parents to access resources from free all the way up to high touch stuff. So
amazing.
Changer. Yeah, it's been amazing. So
I'm excited, guys. Okay, so what do we want to say?
Parents, learn. I mean, it's so funny because like you do it via money. I do it through parenting or relating, but it's basic shadow work. Like, what are you projecting into your relationships that are making them toxic, and start to be responsible for what it is, the stories you're creating and the way that you're projecting onto this other person that you really love, and you want to co-create with, and start to explore what it is that you can do to hold yourself in those things, to make space for them to hold themselves, versus this really weird, toxic, complicated, distorted cycle of fighting with the perceptions of each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can't change our kids' behavior. So the only thing you can change is you as a parent. The only work you can do is on yourself and your capacity to witness and hold your child. When parents come to me and they say, how do I fix my child?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I can't help you with that because that's not what we do.
Did I ever tell you that when I first started my world into my own business, it was right after Robbie was born. So Robbie is now 15. And so probably about 15 years ago. And I started doing talks on parenting, and people kept wanting to know how I had such an amazing child.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm an early childhood teacher, educator. That's my diploma or my degree.
Yeah.
I have done body work, nutrition. By then I'd already done, neurolinguistic programming. Like there were so many things I was like, I suppose I probably have some tools in my tool belt of why I parent the way I do. And I even bought like supernanny.com or Supermama, because it was Super Nanny was big.
Oh,
Supermama.com. And I did a presentation. I did the whole thing. I was going to do mama cards, like 5-minute mama cards. Because, in those days, those times of life when it's like you have 5 minutes. And even in that 5 minutes, you can't even remember that you wanted to like paint your nails. You're like, I don't remember what I want to do for myself because you're so freaking tired. So I was like, I wanted to make the cards that were like, these are the things you can do for yourself in 5 minutes. Right.
Oh, nice.
The whole thing planned out. And just like you said, Jamie, I kept talking to people about doing it and they wanted me to fix their babies. I'm like, your baby is 9 months old. Your baby is 2 years old. Like there's nothing fixing. They're just mirroring you.
Yeah. There's no
right.
fixing.
Like all there is doing is mirroring you. They can't do anything else and like just find their little bodies.
Yeah.
They don't know. They're just 2 months old. Right.
Yeah.
And so I dropped it all because I'm like, I'm not going to come in here and it's like, what you need is you.
Yeah.
You need
Yeah.
Right? You're the one who needs to do the work. And so maybe that's probably how we should like even wrap this and like say, and I'll wrap it together actually, because human design, and we were saying we we're going to say a few things about human design. I think, talking about shadows and things, and knowing that we are the problem or we are the thing. When you know your own human design, you know their human design, right? And then if you go deeper and you know the gene keys of it, the shadows of it, you can pinpoint exactly down to, I'm living in my shadow and I'm doing that thing. It's not anything to do with them. Or where you would have wanted to get pissed off and like slam a door and never speak to someone again. I mean, this is what's been going on with my ex-partner and I, right? Like I wanted to slam a door so hard in his face, but I went, oh, it's in his fucking shadow right here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you can really start to go, okay, so I have compassion. Great. You're in your shadow. Now I can show you, here's your shadow.
Yeah.
Here's how we can, like, this is what we can do. Let's work through this, whatever that is.
Invitation too, because you asked him, like, do you want to see? Do you want to understand? Because if they don't, because this is actually the conflict between me and my youngest, is that I tend to want to offer alternative perspectives when she just wants to feel angry. Yeah. And I'm non-consensually coaching her. And that's part of the way I'm built. Like, I'm just like, there's a lot of other ways to see that. And there are a lot of happier ways to see that. There are a lot of easier ways to see that. And that is not helpful when she just wants to feel, her defined emotional wants to feel the frustration so that it can move.
And then also knowing that, right? So this is another piece of like why human design is so important, because also knowing that is like, we know that Rumi's going to have to go through a big human emotional wave.
Exactly.
And we can't stop that. And when you're an emotional, you just can't. Like that's what's going to happen. And if we teach them to embrace it and we stay out of the process, then it allows them the space to do what they need to do. And they actually learn how to be in their bodies and how to follow their unique guidance and their own systems. Our kids are intuitive as they know themselves, they know their bodies, because we teach them and we give them these spaces to do this. And so, like understanding your human design in relationship with anybody is a game changer.
Huge.
And I'm going to say, actually, I'll just say that I know Jamie said there's parenting paradox, but both of us do human design work. I love focusing on relationships, and I actually love focusing on money stuff, where most people don't do human design readings with money. I freaking love them.
Yeah.
You know so much about your money stuff in human design, and most people don't realize that.
Intimacy and all of that. So
it's so beautiful. Yeah. So beautiful. And so so anyway, I think we probably need to wrap up here.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say to wrap up?
Nothing beyond just like keep going. Parenting is one of the most intense initiations
Ever.
and
Okay.
you're doing it, like just to validate the challenge of it and to encourage, keep going. Like there is always time and space if you stay present and you're willing to continue to stay at the table in the relationships with your kids or your parents or whoever. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And we love you. We see
Love
you.
you.
We know you guys are doing the best you can.
Till next week. If you enjoyed this show, let us know. We're all about authentic connection, so come chat with us on social media or email. Links are listed in the show notes.
And please make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform and share the magic on your socials.